The sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the rural Texas sky in hues of orange and lavender. The rhythmic hum of passing cars filled the cool evening air, a distant symphony of people on their way to somewhere, home, work, or perhaps nowhere in particular. On the side of a narrow stretch of highway just outside of Austin, life pulsed on as usual, except for one tiny anomaly that went almost unnoticed. It was an old cardboard box, worn and frayed, sitting haphazardly in the dusty grass near the road's edge. Its top was slightly caved in, as if the wind had tried to pry it open but couldn't. Most drivers passed by without a second glance, too busy, too rushed, too indifferent. But not Leah. Leah Caldwell was 32, a veterinary technician with a heart as big as the Texas sky itself. She had spent the day volunteering at a local animal shelter, scrubbing cages and comforting animals with her gentle touch. It was her way of coping with her own losses. Years ago, she'd lost her father and, more recently, her beloved golden retriever Max. She had yet to adopt another pet, not because she didn't want to, but because she feared her heart couldn't bear it if she lost another. That evening, on her drive home, Leah spotted the box. It was barely visible in the fading light, but something about it caught her eye. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was the way the edges of the box seemed to tremble ever so slightly. She hit the brakes and pulled her aging Toyota Corolla onto the gravel shoulder. Stepping out of her car, Leah felt a chill despite the warm summer air. The highway seemed unusually quiet now, as if the world was holding its breath. She crouched down next to the box, her shadow stretching long in the golden light. As she drew closer, the faintest of sounds reached her ears, a soft, pitiful mew. Her breath caught. "A kitten," she murmured, her heart already aching. Carefully, Leah peeled back the flaps of the box, her hands trembling slightly. Inside, curled up in the corner, was a tiny gray and white kitten, no older than a few weeks. Its fur was matted, its little ribs visible beneath its frail body. It looked up at Leah with wide, frightened eyes, the kind of eyes that begged silently for help. "Oh, sweetheart," Leah whispered, scooping the kitten up gently. It let out another weak mew, pressing its cold little nose into the palm of her hand. She cradled it close, trying to warm it against her chest. But as Leah was about to stand, she froze. The box wasn't empty. Beneath a crumpled towel, something else stirred. For a moment, Leah's heart pounded so loudly she could hardly hear. Slowly, she reached back into the box and lifted the towel. Her gasp echoed in the silence of the roadside. There, nestled against the cardboard, was not one but two tiny, shivering puppies. They were impossibly small. One black and tan, the other golden. Their eyes were barely open, their bodies curled tightly together for warmth. Leah's mind raced. Who could have left them here? Why would anyone abandon not just one but three helpless animals in such a cruel way? The enormity of their situation hit her like a freight train. These babies wouldn't have lasted the night. The kitten was malnourished, the puppies were too weak to even whimper, and the heat of the day had already faded into a cold, unforgiving evening. Leah quickly sprang into action, wrapping the towel around all three of them and carrying them to her car. She could feel their fragile bodies shivering through the fabric, their tiny hearts beating fast with fear. As she drove, her mind buzzed with questions. Where had they come from? How long had they been there? And most importantly, could she save them in time? By the time she pulled into her driveway, the sky had turned a deep indigo, scattered with the first stars of the night. Leah didn't even pause to turn off the engine before rushing inside, the bundle of lives clutched tightly in her arms. Her modest home was a haven for animal care, with supplies and medical equipment she'd accumulated over the years. She placed the kittens and puppies on a soft blanket under a heat lamp and quickly began examining each one. The kitten, whom she decided to call Willow, was severely dehydrated and underweight, but her meows had grown louder, an encouraging sign. The black and tan puppy, whom Leah named Max Jr. in honor of her late dog, had a weak but steady heartbeat. The golden puppy, whom she christened Sunny, was the smallest and most fragile, her breathing shallow and labored. Leah worked tirelessly late into the night, her veterinary training kicking in. She fed them with syringes, cleaned their tiny bodies, and whispered words of comfort, her voice trembling with emotion. As she sat on the floor, stroking their fragile forms, Leah felt a surge of anger toward whoever had abandoned them. But that anger was quickly overshadowed by something stronger, an overwhelming determination to give these tiny creatures the chance they deserved. Leah didn't know it yet, but the discovery of that box was about to change her life forever. The night stretched on, but Leah refused to rest. Every hour was a battle, and she was their only soldier. Willow, the kitten, was the most vocal of the trio. Her tiny mews cut through the silence of Leah's living room as if she were rallying herself to fight for survival. The puppies, on the other hand, barely moved. Sunny's shallow breathing made Leah's chest tighten with worry, and even Max Jr., though slightly stronger, was far from safe. Leah had faced countless emergencies at the veterinary clinic, but this felt different. This wasn't just a job, it was personal. These three fragile souls had been thrown away like garbage, yet here they were, clinging to life with every ounce of strength they had. As the hours passed, Leah worked methodically. She used a warm, damp cloth to clean the dirt from Willow's fur, revealing the soft gray and white patches beneath. She prepared puppy formula and kitten milk replacer, carefully warming the mixture to the perfect temperature before feeding each baby with a syringe. Sunny, the golden puppy, barely managed to latch onto the syringe's tip. Her tiny body trembled as Leah coaxed a few drops into her mouth. "Come on, baby girl," Leah whispered, tears pricking her eyes. "You've got to fight. You're stronger than this. I know you are." The clock struck 4 a.m. before Leah finally allowed herself a moment to breathe. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her back against the couch, watching the trio as they lay bundled together under the heat lamp. For the first time since she found them, they looked almost peaceful. Willow stretched out her spindly legs, her pink nose twitching. Max Jr. rested his tiny head against Sunny's side, as if offering her comfort. But Leah knew their fight was far from over. She needed help, and fast. The next morning, after barely an hour of sleep, Leah made the call to her friend and mentor, Dr. Angela Hart, a senior veterinarian at the clinic where Leah worked part-time. Angela had a reputation for being both brilliant and compassionate, a rare combination. "Leah," Angela's calm voice answered on the second ring. "What's going on? You sound off." Leah quickly explained the situation, her voice thick with emotion. "Angela, they're so small, so weak. I'm doing everything I can, but I don't know if it's enough." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line before Angela responded. "Bring them in. We'll do a full assessment. But Leah, you need to prepare yourself. Sometimes, despite our best efforts, it's too late." The words hit Leah like a punch to the stomach, but she refused to give up. "I'm not losing them," she said firmly. "I can't." By 9 a.m., Leah was at the clinic, carrying the makeshift bundle of life in her arms. Angela and the rest of the staff were waiting. The team sprang into action, running tests, administering fluids, and monitoring vitals. Leah hovered nearby, wringing her hands and biting her lip as she waited for updates. It didn't take long for the bad news to come. "Sunny's in critical condition," Angela said gently, placing a hand on Leah's shoulder. "Her oxygen levels are dangerously low, and she's severely anemic. Without a blood transfusion, she won't make it through the night." Leah felt her knees weaken. Sunny, the smallest and quietest of the three, had already stolen her heart. The thought of losing her was unbearable. "And the others?" Leah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Willow and Max Jr. are doing better," Angela replied. "Willow's got a fighting spirit, that's for sure. And Max Jr. is stable for now. But they're not out of the woods yet. They'll need round-the-clock care." The weight of Angela's words pressed heavily on Leah's chest. This wasn't going to be easy. It wasn't going to be quick. But she was determined. "I'll do whatever it takes," Leah said, her voice steadier now. The next few days were a whirlwind of sleepless nights and endless care. Leah divided her time between her home and the clinic, juggling feedings, medications, and emotional roller coasters. Willow's meows grew louder and more insistent, a sure sign that she was gaining strength. Max Jr. began to wag his tiny tail, just the faintest flicker, but it was enough to make Leah smile for the first time in days. Sunny, however, remained a fragile question mark. The blood transfusion had bought her more time, but her recovery was slow and uncertain. Leah spent hours by her side, stroking her golden fur and whispering softly. "You're not alone," she would say, her voice trembling. "I'm here, Sunny. I'll always be here." There were moments of hope. A slight improvement in Sunny's breathing, the way her little paws twitched in her sleep. But there were also setbacks. One evening, Leah found Sunny unresponsive, her tiny body cold despite the heat lamp. Panic gripped her as she rushed to warm the puppy with her own hands, tears streaming down her face. "Please," she begged. "Please don't leave me." Sunny survived that night, but the experience left Leah shaken. It was a stark reminder of how fragile life could be. Amid the chaos, Leah began to piece together clues about the trio's origins. The cardboard box had no identifying marks, but Leah recalled something strange. A faint smell of gasoline clinging to the towel that had covered the puppies. She mentioned it to Angela, who sighed deeply. "It's not uncommon," Angela said. "Sometimes people drive out to remote areas, abandon the animals, and leave without a trace. They don't want to be caught. It's heartbreaking." Heartbreaking didn't even begin to cover it. The thought of someone discarding Willow, Max Jr., and Sunny like trash made Leah's blood boil. But anger wouldn't help them now. What they needed was love, patience, and a miracle. 3 weeks had passed since Leah found the box on the side of the highway. The days had blurred into a constant cycle of feeding, cleaning, and monitoring, with Leah refusing to let exhaustion slow her down. Every small victory was celebrated. A stronger cry from Willow, Max Jr. eating on his own for the first time, or Sunny managing to stand, even if only for a fleeting moment. But despite these glimmers of hope, Sunny's condition remained precarious. The golden puppy was still the weakest of the three, her breathing labored, her tiny frame too frail to support much movement. Leah often found herself lying awake at night, her mind spinning with fears that she wouldn't admit out loud. One particularly stormy evening, Leah sat on the floor beside Sunny's makeshift bed, stroking her velvety fur. The rain hammered against the windows, and the soft rumble of thunder seemed to mirror Leah's anxiety. Sunny's breathing was shallow again, each rise and fall of her chest a slow, uncertain effort. Leah leaned closer, resting her forehead against Sunny's fragile body. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she whispered. "But you are. I see it in you. You just have to keep fighting, baby girl. Please, keep fighting." As if in response, Sunny let out the faintest of sounds, a soft whimper that seemed to say, "I'm trying." That night, Leah made a decision. She wasn't going to wait for time to heal them. She was going to fight with everything she had. She reached out to her online community of animal lovers, posting photos of the trio and sharing their story. "Found abandoned in a cardboard box," she wrote. "These three little fighters are defying the odds, but they need help. Sunny, especially, is hanging on by a thread. Any advice, support, or resources would mean the world." Within hours, Leah's post went viral. Messages of encouragement poured in, along with offers of donations to help cover medical costs. A retired veterinarian from Houston reached out, offering to drive up and assist with Sunny's care. A local animal rescue group delivered specialized formula and equipment. Even strangers from other states sent letters, their words filled with hope and kindness. Leah was overwhelmed by the outpouring of support. She wasn't alone anymore. She had a community standing with her. The retired veterinarian, Dr. Millstone, arrived the very next day, bringing with him a portable oxygen tank and other supplies. He examined Sunny thoroughly, his weathered hands gentle but firm. "She's a fighter," he said, his voice gruff but kind, "but she's also a pup in critical condition. We'll need to stimulate her lungs and get her on oxygen around the clock." Under Dr. Millstone's guidance, Leah implemented a new regimen for Sunny. She gently massaged the puppy's chest to encourage deeper breathing, administered nebulizer treatments, and kept the oxygen tank close by at all times. For the next few days, Leah barely left Sunny's side. Willow and Max Jr. were steadily improving, their playful antics bringing much-needed lightness to Leah's home. Willow had taken to pouncing on Max Jr.'s tail, much to his indignation, and their tiny barks and meows filled the air like music. But Leah's focus remained on Sunny. Then, one evening, the turning point came. It was a quiet night, with the Texas sky clear and dotted with stars. Leah was sitting on the floor, as she often did, watching over Sunny. Willow and Max Jr. had curled up together nearby, already fast asleep. Sunny, however, was restless. Her small paws twitched, and she let out a series of soft whimpers. Leah leaned closer, worried that another setback was coming. But then, to her astonishment, Sunny lifted her head. It wobbled slightly, as if the effort was almost too much, but she kept it up. Then she tried to stand. Leah gasped, her heart racing. "Sunny, what are you doing, sweet girl?" Sunny's legs trembled beneath her, and for a moment it seemed like she might collapse. But then, with a tiny burst of determination, she took one shaky step, and then another. "Oh my God," Leah whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're doing it. You're walking." It wasn't much, just a few unsteady steps before Sunny slumped back onto the blanket, exhausted. But it was enough. It was a sign that she was fighting, that she was determined to live. Leah scooped Sunny up, holding her close as she sobbed into the puppy's soft fur. "You're incredible," she whispered. "You're the bravest little soul I've ever known." From that moment on, Sunny's recovery accelerated. Each day brought new milestones, longer walks, stronger breaths, and even the faintest wag of her tiny tail. Willow and Max Jr., now full of energy, became her constant companions, their playful antics seeming to spur her on. The once fragile puppy was transforming before Leah's eyes. She still had a long road ahead, but the worst of the storm had passed. It wasn't just Sunny who had changed. Leah felt something inside herself shift as well. For years, she had carried a deep sadness, a fear of losing the ones she loved. But Sunny, Willow, and Max Jr. had shown her that love was worth the risk, that even in the face of heartbreak, there was joy to be found in giving your heart completely. One evening, as Leah sat on her porch with all three animals at her feet, she thought back to the cardboard box on the side of the road. It was unthinkable that someone could have discarded them so carelessly. But maybe, just maybe, that cruel act had led them to exactly where they were meant to be. Leah smiled, her heart full in a way it hadn't been in years. These three little fighters had changed her life, and she would spend the rest of her days making sure they knew just how loved they were. The days of desperation had given way to a rhythm of hope and healing. Leah's small, sunlit home in rural Texas now buzzed with life. The once fragile trio that had arrived on the brink of death were growing stronger by the day, each of them blossoming into unique, vibrant personalities that filled Leah's world with joy. Sunny, the smallest of the three, and the one Leah had worried most about, had made the most miraculous recovery. While still a little behind her siblings in energy and size, Sunny had developed a quiet but fierce determination that reminded Leah every day of the little puppy's fight to survive. Sunny had a habit of toddling after Willow and Max Jr., her steps still a little wobbly but growing stronger every week. She wasn't as rambunctious as her kitten and puppy siblings, but when Leah sat on the floor, Sunny would climb into her lap and look up with those soulful brown eyes, her little tail wagging softly. Willow, on the other hand, was a bundle of energy. The tiny kitten that Leah had found trembling in that cardboard box had become a confident, curious ball of fluff who had a knack for getting into trouble. She darted across the house like a miniature storm, pouncing on anything that moved, including Max Jr.'s tail, much to the puppy's annoyance. Max Jr., who had grown into a sturdy little pup with floppy ears and a playful nature, seemed to take his role as the big brother seriously. Though he sometimes growled in mock annoyance when Willow swatted at him, he always gave in, letting her climb onto his back or curl up beside him. He was particularly protective of Sunny, often nudging her gently with his nose when she seemed hesitant to join in their play. As Leah watched the three of them, she often thought about how much they had changed not just her home, but her heart. She had always loved animals, but these three had shown her something deeper. They had taught her the power of resilience, of unconditional love, and of opening herself to joy even when the fear of loss loomed large. It was late autumn now, and the air carried a crispness that hinted at the coming winter. Leah decided it was time for a milestone, a trip to the park. She had kept the trio close to home for months, wanting to protect them from any potential dangers while they healed, but now it was clear they were ready for a new adventure. She bundled Sunny, Willow, and Max Jr. into the backseat of her car, the same aging Corolla that had brought them to safety all those weeks ago. Max Jr. wagged his tail furiously, his nose pressed against the window as the car rumbled down the road. Willow perched on the headrest, her curious green eyes scanning the world outside. Sunny, ever the quiet observer, rested on Leah's lap, her soft golden fur warm against Leah's hands. When they arrived at the park, the trio's reactions couldn't have been more different. Willow leapt out of her carrier the moment Leah opened it, darting across the grass with fearless excitement. Max Jr. bounded after her, his floppy ears flapping as he barked joyfully. Sunny, however, hesitated. Leah knelt down beside the little golden puppy, her hands gently cradling Sunny's trembling body. "It's okay, sweet girl," she said softly. "You're safe now. You can do this." For a moment, Sunny seemed unsure. But then, as if remembering all the battles she had already fought and won, she took a cautious step forward. The grass tickled her paws, the cool breeze ruffled her fur, and soon she was toddling after Max Jr. and Willow, her tail wagging tentatively. Leah watched them, her chest tight with emotion. This was what she had dreamed of during those long, sleepless nights when it seemed like the trio might not make it. Seeing them happy, healthy, and free was nothing short of a miracle. As the weeks turned into months, life settled into a beautiful routine. Leah decided to officially adopt all three, signing the papers at the shelter with tears in her eyes and a smile on her face. "They're not just my pets," she told Angela, who accompanied her to the shelter that day. "They're my family." Angela smiled knowingly. "It's amazing what love can do, isn't it?" Sunny, Max Jr. and Willow quickly became the heart of Leah's home. Sunny grew more confident every day, her once fragile body now sturdy enough to keep up with her siblings. She still preferred cuddles to roughhousing, but there was a quiet strength in her that Leah found endlessly inspiring. Max Jr. developed into the protector of the group, barking at anyone who came too close to Leah's property, but always greeting Leah with a wagging tail and a lick to the face. Willow, meanwhile, remained a mischievous whirlwind of energy. She had a habit of climbing to the highest points in the house, whether it was the top of a bookshelf or the refrigerator, and staring down at Leah with an expression that seemed to say, "What are you going to do about it?" The trio also became local celebrities. Leah's social media posts about their journey had continued to gain attention, and people from all over the community began stopping by to meet the animals who had stolen their hearts. Leah used the opportunity to advocate for animal welfare, sharing the importance of adopting and rescuing pets in need. One day, while Leah was volunteering at the shelter, a young girl approached her with tears in her eyes. "I saw your post about Sunny," the girl said, clutching her mother's hand. "She's so brave. I want to help animals like you do when I grow up." Leah knelt down to the girl's level, her heart swelling with pride. "You can start helping them now," she said with a smile. "Every act of kindness, no matter how small, can save a life." That evening, as Leah sat on the porch with Sunny, Willow, and Max Jr. sprawled at her feet, she reflected on how much had changed since the day she stopped her car by the side of the highway. What had started as an act of compassion had grown into something much larger, a reminder that even the smallest lives could make the biggest impact. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and orange. Sunny rested her head on Leah's lap, her eyes half closed in contentment. Willow curled up beside her, purring softly, while Max Jr. gnawed on a stick he had found in the yard. Leah smiled, her heart full. The cardboard box that had once symbolized abandonment and despair had become the starting point of a story filled with love, hope, and second chances. Months had passed since that fateful evening on the side of the highway, but Leah still thought about the cardboard box sometimes. It had been a symbol of heartbreak, a cruel act of abandonment that could have stolen 3 innocent lives. But now, when Leah thought of that box, she no longer saw despair. Instead, she saw it as the beginning of something beautiful. Sunny, Max Jr., and Willow had transformed not only Leah's home, but her heart. She had found purpose in their survival and joy in their everyday antics. They weren't just pets to her. They were proof of resilience, living reminders that love could mend even the most broken of spirits. Sunny, the smallest and quietest of the trio, had become the glue that held them all together. Her journey from fragile to fearless was a testament to the power of second chances. She still had her moments of hesitation, still clung to Leah when the world seemed overwhelming, but there was a spark in her eyes now, a light that said, "I made it." Leah often wondered about the person who had left them behind. Were they heartless, desperate, Regretful? She would never know, and perhaps it didn't matter. What mattered was that Sunny, Max Jr., and Willow had found their way to her. They had been given a chance to survive, and they had taken it. As Leah sat in her cozy living room one chilly evening, her small family gathered around her. She couldn't help but feel grateful. Willow was perched on the back of the couch, her tail flicking playfully. Max Jr. was sprawled across the floor, snoring softly, and Sunny lay curled up in Leah's lap, her golden fur warm against Leah's hands. "You're my miracle," Leah whispered, stroking Sunny's ears. "All of you." Outside, the wind howled, but inside there was nothing but warmth. The little lives that had once been discarded had become a source of light, filling Leah's home with laughter, love, and hope. Leah leaned back, closing her eyes as Sunny's steady breathing lulled her into a quiet peace. The road that had brought them together had been a hard one, but it was worth every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt. Because in the end, they had found each other. And in finding each other, they had found a home.